Okay, so first of all, the heart is a muscle. It's about the size of a clenched fist, and it sits to the left side of your thoracic region. Okay, so if you make a fist slightly to the left, this is about where your heart is. Okay, that's where it's positioned. It acts as a pump to pump the blood around the body that's been oxygenated by the lungs. Okay, and also pumps the blood that's deoxygenated back to the lungs to then be oxygenated again. So as you're actually looking at me, where the heart's positioned on my left would be your right. So I've put here, you've got right and left, just so that you don't get confused. Okay, so we will start with the right hand side. So basically, you've got the blood flow going through that's deoxygenated in blue, okay, to show that it has no oxygen in that blood. And then the left side is oxygenated and that's in red, okay? So it just makes it a little bit easier to differentiate which side is deoxygenated and which side is oxygenated. Okay, so we're going to start off then on the right side. This side is the pulmonary circulation. So this is where the blood returns back from the veins and then into the heart and through to be oxygenated by the lungs. Now the pathway for that starts at the inferior and superior vena cava. Okay, so the inferior being the bottom end and up, and the superior being the top. Okay, so superior is always on top and inferior is always underneath. So the inferior and superior vena cava, and that's this bit here. So that's where the blood arrives deoxygenated. It then goes into the right atrium. Okay, so the blood flow then goes into the right atrium. So the inferior superior vena cava there, then the right atrium. Now, atrium is Latin for entrance hall. So if you think about atrium being an entrance hall, that's where the blood arrives, okay? That's the first port of call. So your right atrium is this bit here, this top chamber on the right side. It then goes through a valve. Now this is an atrioventricular valve. If you hear of an atrioventricular valve, they're referring to the valves that separate the atrium and the ventricle. Okay, so that the answer is there in the question. Atrioventricular valve. So this one is called the tricuspid valve. The reason it's called tricuspid is because it has 3 cusps. Okay, basically valves open and close to prevent backflow. So as the heart beats, the blood can come through, but it can't go backwards. It's only got that one-way flow. Okay. So if they're working great, then that's what they do, prevent that backflow. So that goes through the tricuspid valve, and that's this bit here. Then into the right ventricle. Again, Latin for ventricle is belly, so that's kind of the bigger part of the chamber, and that is the part that pushes out then up into the artery. Okay, so the ventricle is underneath the atrium. Another way of remembering that is that A comes before V in the alphabet. Okay, A is right at the beginning and V is quite near the end. So it's quite easy to remember that A comes before V. That'll also help you to remember that the atrium's first, where the blood arrives into the entrance hall, and the ventricle is the main belly. Alright, so then, as the heart beats and contracts, the blood is pushed up through the pulmonary valve. That's this bit here, okay? Pulmonary valve. Now this one is called a semilunar valve. So not the atrioventricular, they're the ones found in these chambers here. The semilunar valves are then found in the arteries, okay? They're called semilunar because they're shaped like half moon. Again, prevent backflow back into the chambers. So, through the pulmonary valve and into the pulmonary artery. Now this pulmonary artery then branches off into two different directions. One going to the right lung and one going to the left. Okay, so then the blood goes to the lungs. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but say the blood's then been to the lungs and been oxygenated, it then arrives back. So now it's gone red, okay? It arrives back on the left side through the pulmonary veins. That's these here. Now, when you think of arteries and veins, arteries, think away, okay? So arteries are, take blood away from the heart, and veins bring the blood back. So imagine venous return, okay? So veins return the blood back. And the arteries always take the blood away. Now, the pulmonary veins are the only veins that contain oxygenated blood. All the other veins in the body carry deoxygenated. Okay, so that's also really important to remember. So the blood arrives back into the left atrium via the pulmonary veins. So the left atrium is this bit here, okay? Again, the blood is arriving in the entrance hallway, okay, into the atrium and then through another valve. Now this one's called the bicuspid valve. This means it has two cusps, okay? Now, a good way of remembering which one comes before the other is if you think tricuspid and bicuspid, think try before you buy. So if we're going through the circulation on the right side first, we're going through the tricuspid, and then as it comes back through the left side, then that goes through the bicuspid. So think try before you buy. Also, a good thing to remember is the bicuspid valve is also known as the mitral valve. So if you hear the word mitral valve, they are referring to the bicuspid. It's also something that you need to try and let sink in, okay? So through the bicuspid valve into the left ventricle, into the belly on the left side, okay? Then, again, as the heart pumps, it goes through the aortic valve here, which again is a semilunar valve, through here, into the aorta, and then out through to the rest of the body for the oxygenated blood to be used. Okay, now this side here is called the pulmonary circulation. That's between the heart and the lungs. This side, the left side, is the systemic circulation. So this is when the blood has been oxygenated, pumps back through the heart and goes through and then out to the rest of the body to be used. Okay? So I hope that gives you a good idea of how to remember everything. You can always refer back to this video, and if you've got any other questions about that, don't hesitate to just drop me a comment or send me a DM and I'll happily answer it for you. Okay, so moving on then to the lungs. Okay, here we go. So, the lungs. I've drew out a man here, and this is to show the passageway of air. So, first of all, the air is going to be green. First of all, the air comes through the nose and also the mouth. So it comes through here and through and into the pharynx. Another word for the pharynx is throat. Okay, so it's basically the throat. Then it goes through the larynx, which is the voice box. Okay. It carries on and then enters into the trachea. This is your windpipe. Okay. So it's going down. These are all more common words that you'll be familiar with. So just so that you can imagine whereabouts it actually is, that's it. So starting in through the nose and the mouth, coming down into the throat, into the pharynx, then into the larynx, then the trachea, then it branches off into two parts, okay? That's called the bronchus. So this is each bronchus here, as it branches off there, these two branches. It then branches further off into bronchioles, which is these here. Okay, and then at the end of these bronchioles, these air-filled sacs here called alveoli. I think they look a bit like cauliflowers. That's how I remember them. But yeah, these little buds, or alveoli, at the end, this is where gaseous exchange then takes place. So this is basically where the oxygen is deposited into the blood via the capillaries. Okay, so your oxygen that you breathe in is nourishing the blood at this point, and it is also taking out the carbon dioxide for you to then go backwards through this pathway and exhale. The thing that you need to really remember is the order of the pathway of air. Okay, so a good way of remembering it is, obviously it starts at the nose and the mouth. Remember, please leave that Bacardi Breezer alone, okay? That will help you to remember the pathway of air. So, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchus, bronchiole, alveoli. And then gaseous exchange, that's where the gaseous exchange takes place, where the oxygen is taken from, into the blood, and the carbon dioxide taken from the blood and then back up, backwards.